Hey everyone, I'm Margaret Schaus.
Hi, and I'm Brandon Tessers. Margaret and I are both licensed therapists, but this is not therapy. This is the This Is Not Therapy Hour. Welcome. Just pouring some tea.
Pouring some tea. So we are a private practice that is here in Northbrook, Illinois. We work with a variety of clients for individual counseling, couples and family counseling. We also do coaching for business coaching, life coaching, emotional wellness. I'm so used to you doing it. I'm getting stuck now with what I'm trying to say.
This
Switch off.
is not therapy. It is just an open conversation. Margaret and I are talking to each other and to you. We're doing our best to make our guesses about who you are and what you're interested in and how we're coming across to you. For those of you who are willing and able to participate in the chat, we appreciate that because it gives us more information to base those guesses on. Please don't hold back or hesitate because you're worried about being on topic or anything like that. We'll go wherever, and we want to be talking about whatever's most interesting or relevant to you all. Yes, we work with a private therapy practice. We are located in Northbrook, Illinois, but we work with people in the states of Illinois and Wisconsin.
I was missing something.
And I'll throw in group therapy there too. You mentioned individual, couples, and family, but we do group as well.
Oh, wow.
And yes, we work with some coaches who can work with people all over the world. They're all executive functioning coaches, but they all have additional specialties as well: business, creativity, parenting.
About the streaming on multiple, you always forget that.
I do. Yeah.
We stream on multiple platforms, so you will not see the comments that are on the platform that you are on. So me and Brandon do our best to read the comments that come in aloud, so everyone knows what we are all talking about.
And we are still in the changing, moving process, so still not perfectly ideal setup. Sorry about that. I know that the lighting isn't exactly right. We've got these windows behind us, and we'll have to get some stuff figured out, but we'll make do for today. I'm a little nervous. I've changed things so that hopefully the camera doesn't die in the middle of the thing, but it might. And if it does, we are in a situation where we don't have like the backup camera set up to be able to use.
That didn't happen the last few times,
right? I think so, but also I was using it earlier because I had a session before this, which I don't usually.
Oh.
I tried changing out like how it's set up, so hopefully it doesn't drain battery as it's being used and can just be used indefinitely, but we will see. If it does, and we'll figure it out. Or maybe we'll wrap up early at that point.
Right.
Have another.
Because you were saying it doesn't charge, like when the charger is in, it doesn't do that while it's working, right? You can't charge it simultaneously?
I think it does. It should be able to. I think it just wasn't. I think it was using more power than it was drawing.
Ooh.
And so I tried to switch how much power it's like pulling in. So hopefully it doesn't deteriorate. But
gotcha.
We'll see. We'll figure it out over time. Just like with this setup and just with things generally, it's all. I mean, we make jokes about it, and certainly people say it a lot when it's not necessarily something they believe to be true. But it's like, I'll figure it out. That is kind of how things work in reality. Yeah. That's kind of like maybe the most foundational piece of how we're talking about everything is that like you can't actually figure things out in advance. You can of course come up with ideas and get information that is useful, but when the moment arrives, like you try things and you adjust, and that everything is a process,
right?
Iteration. So we'll be slowly building and trying to figure all this out, and maybe we'll have to change things, but this is what we've got for now.
Yeah.
So yeah, bear with us while we're figuring it out.
Well, I mean, on the topic of that, with figuring things out, because I know I moved into another office across the hall, and I remember last week being like, oh my God, I need to have it set up a certain way and everything like that. But I also forgot that I did do that on Friday, and I walked in and I just felt so calm. I felt good, and even being like, oh yeah, like there are little things I could do here and there. Like I went today and I got a little bowl for my fidgets to have in the office, and just being like, okay, like it's getting there. Yeah, more just excitement with it. I think Friday was just a lot last Friday of moving everything out of my old office and then having a new setup and trying to figure it all out. So it was kind of nice to have a break over the weekend to not think about it, and then coming in and feeling a lot more at ease about it. I think it was just a lot of, for me at least, change at once, but
yeah,
it was good. How are you liking your new office setup?
I mean, there's work to do, but I think we've got the bones of it. You know, I there are all kinds of things in life where there is a lot of reason, a lot of incentive to like have a plan in advance so that as soon as the time comes, you can like get it all set up and hit the ground running. But that's something to be avoided at all costs, right? Like to whatever extent is possible, it's always better to be able to like get into something and have room and space to figure it out.
Yeah.
And yes, this specific example is a good metaphor of like moving into a new space. It's great to do stuff in advance, especially big high level stuff to like make sure that you're going to be able to like set it up for the things that you need and whatever. But until you actually get into it, it's very difficult to like finalize it, you know?
Well, I want to add to that too, because I know I was trying to like plan everything, but what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I noticed that at least for me, but I think this like touching on what you said about how, sorry, that noise is distracting me, about how it's not good to change it all at once. I was like, okay, I got to figure all this out. And when I'm trying to do that, I'm wanting my office to match who I am and my identity and all of that. And when I rush it, it's not matching to me at all. I'm just picking things really quick. And so, I don't know, I think I had a point I was going with somewhere with this. I'm mad that it's not going there. Give me a second.
Okay.
Give me one moment to calibrate. Okay. And then going into the office today and looking around and I don't know, realizing that if I had done all of that stuff on Friday I wanted to, it still wouldn't have been how I wanted to be, and just kind of embracing that like there are things in the office, the new office I'm in, that I thought I wanted to change, but now I want to keep, and just not letting it rush and just kind of going with the process, I guess, has been really helpful. Yeah, that's well. There was more to that, I just can't remember.
I'm sure, I don't know if you remember, but I've told this story a bunch, a story that I heard from my dad way back in the day when he was a sales trainer and a coach, about the big rocks in the jar. It's a story of a professor talking to his students about time management, and gets up in front of everybody and sets out a big jar and puts a bunch of big rocks in it until there's no room for any more. And he says, "Is this jar full?" And everyone says, "Yep." And then he gets a bag full of a bunch of pebbles and pours it in, and the pebbles kind of sift and in between the big rocks. And says, "Is it full now?" And they're bright kids, so they've kind of figured out like, no, I guess not. There's still room. So he gets some sand and dumps the sand in, and it sifts and fills in between. "Is it full now?" And I'm like, "Yes." "No, you can't get anything fitting between the sand." And then he pours some water in, and it fills up to the top. And he says, "So what's the moral of this story? What's the lesson from this?" And a student raises their hand and says that no matter how full you think your schedule is, you can always fit in more. And he says, "No. The lesson is you better put your big rocks in first."
I like that.
So that's usually, I tell that story for that reason, to like figure out what it is that's important that you need to make sure is contained in your space, is paid for in your resources, and let other things fill in. But there's this other piece that's relevant to what we're talking about today, which is like, until you've gotten those big ones in, it's hard to figure out how to fit everything else around them. Right? So yeah, with this specific example / metaphor of moving into a physical space, that's what I mean. You want to look at your big rocks, right? Like, what is this space for? What am I going to be doing in there? And make sure that it works for that before you even agree to take on the space. If you're talking about like moving to a new place, think about, how many rooms do I need or whatever, can I fit that stuff in there? Will it work? If that's a yes, though, beyond that, it's really, you can start, if you want, you can start buying things in advance of moving in for putting on the walls or, whatever. But once you get in the space, you're almost always going to then, like, it's not going to work out exactly like you imagined it. Plus, you're a different person. I think this is part of what you're saying. When you're in the new space, it impacts you, and you're different, and you like different things.
So I'm happy you said that. This is what I was going to say before that I couldn't remember, was like what you had said to me before, like we're changing moment by moment, minute by minute. And thank you for reminding me. On Friday, I have a lot different Friday moving into it for the first day than a few days and going into it. Like, I have different ideas, I have different things, and like I may change it down the line, but I think doing it small and knowing that I change minute by minute, and if I had bought all the stuff I wanted Friday, I still wouldn't like it. That's what I wanted to say earlier.
Yeah, that, especially with bigger changes, whatever, like, as we're going through them, we're impacted by things differently too. And this applies, I keep saying that this is a good example or metaphor because this concept applies to everything. And people will make this mistake all the time where like, it can be useful to make plans, certainly. Generally, the way that we talk about plans and the way people are making plans in our culture is generally not super useful. But the idea of it, sure, obviously, like thinking ahead and making some arrangements or coming to some conclusions about what you're going to do. And there's a quote from Mike Tyson: everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? That like part of the issue then is that people get too far into it and make plans in advance without accounting for, because you can't account for anything that you don't know yet.
Right.
But as the time comes to implement the plan, like things will change between when you made it and when the time comes. And then once it starts, things change. So we're not just talking about like getting your work done or whatever. We're talking about things like when people talk about, this is the kind of person I want to marry. They're like, great, it's worth thinking about like what traits, what characteristics, what are you looking for? How do you like to be treated? Whatever. And you're going to meet somebody and then you're going to start to figure it out. And like, they're going to change you, right? You might come to like some things that you didn't like before, or not like some things that you did like before.
Right.
You know, I never would have wanted to live where I currently live before I met my wife. I wouldn't have thought if I was designing like my perfect person, it would be someone who also likes to just move around and is very open and, you know, figures things out. And my wife is not like that at all. I mean, at least compared to me, right? And thank goodness, because there's so much value in like being consistent and having some like routine and some structure and a home base. So you have to plan, if you're going to plan, you have to plan on knowing that like you will change and what you want will change.
I agree with that, but I also think that there are still core things that don't change over time.
Like what?
Honesty.
Sure. You're talking about like in a partner that
Yeah,
you're
I was just talking about that, or just for that example, you can make it broader and say like, yeah, there are things that change, but I think there are core things that stay consistent over time.
Yeah, I agree. Although I will point out that like, as always, we talk about the more general something is, the more cases to which it applies, but the less of an impact it has to each of those cases, and the more specific, the opposite. It doesn't apply as often, but it has more impact when it does. So anything where we're trying to come up with like, this is something I can confidently say will not change for me. We're being very general in order to say that. So something like honesty, because when it comes down to it, like certainly there are certain things where I'm like, I would not want to deal with this kind of dishonesty or dishonesty about this thing. But also there's other things where like, oh no, yeah, they didn't say about that or whatever, but it doesn't matter.
Right. I think it's implied though.
What's implied?
Like with the honesty thing, I knew you were going to say that because yes, I know there's some stuff where like it doesn't matter, or like if they're planning a surprise and they lie about something, like I wouldn't care about that. But I think when people say general things, and maybe I should just speak for myself. When I say general things, I know that there's nuances. I think what I mean is just like where the honesty matters.
Well, I believe you, although I'll point out that then what you're really saying is just like, there will always be some things that matter to me. And like, yes, that's true. What exactly specifically those things are going to be, I don't know. But yeah, we can put it, again, that's part of the value of being more generic or abstract in language. It's like, you know, I want someone who really loves me. What do we mean by that? You know, there's nuance to it. We'll know it when we see it. Some of this is ways of making plans or identifying targets or aims or whatever in ways that allow you to then, because what we're saying is true, right? You will change over time and you'll learn things. So some of this is putting it in such general language that it's like, yeah, I'll kind of figure it out as I go along,
right? Which
is then like not that much of, there's just really not that much utility. Let me say that differently. There can be a lot of utility in saying like, honesty is important to me and I want to be with someone who's honest. For what it's worth, that is true of me. I care about honesty quite a bit. We talk about it a lot. I mean, I use different terms, but there's a limited utility to that, right? Because like, yeah, I mean, as you pointed out, there's nuance, and all we're really saying is like, there are versions of being dishonest that I would really hate. But then you go and you meet somebody and you're dating, and I'm like, of course you're on the lookout for those. Like, having identified in advance that honesty matters to you isn't really changing anything there. The versions of dishonesty that would bother you are going to bother you if and when they happen. And of course you're looking out for. So really the utility of that comes down to people then saying like, well, they were dishonest about something, so I'm breaking up with them.
Mhm.
And that I think is fine, but it depends on the nuance of it. There are
Right.
some things where I'd be like, yeah, break up with it. And then there's other things where I'd be like, well, I get it. And even in this case, it was an issue, but it doesn't necessarily indicate that like it's likely that it will happen again or
Right.
whatever, you know. So this is one of the issues with people making plans is we, especially in our culture and the language we use, we have a really hard time distinguishing between plans and rules. Like we make a plan and then we treat it as though it's what we're supposed to do.
Mhm.
And so then if in the future we ever deviate from that plan, we have a
Mhm.
tendency then to be upset with ourselves or judge ourselves as having failed.
Mhm.
What generally is happening is like, I made a plan with the information I have. Time goes forward and I get more information and things change, whatever. Now the time has arrived and I do something different. Theoretically, that's, well, the plan was, it was good job past me. You did your best to come up with a good plan. You didn't quite get it. Like obviously the plan didn't work out the way you were guessing that it would. But good work, we'll try again.
Mhm.
But what actually tends to happen instead is people being like, dang it, what's wrong with me that I'm not following the plan that I made?
Yeah.
And that applies to even like dating and stuff too, that, you know, my partner is dishonest in some way. And now I'm like, oh, I should break up with them because they're a dishonest person and that matters to me, but also I don't really want to. And,
Mhm.
you know, it just lacks the,
So are you saying that, like, it's not beneficial to say those things and to like want something in a partner because it could change?
no, I think that it is useful to think about what you want in a partner, but I wasn't intending to talk about like relationships and dating. That was just an example, but this is good stuff to talk about, I think. But there's nuance to how you go about it, right?
Right.
That like,
As everything, though.
of course, where I see the utility in it is in like making my choices about who I'm interested in going on a date with or a second date with or asking out or whatever, right? That it's useful for me to know like, oh, it turns out I tend to get along well with people who are like this and don't work well with people who are like this, whatever.
But then how would you even know that until you go on a date with them?
Well, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So it's useful in that sense. In the same way that like, I'm trying to come up with the first metaphor that popped in my mind. I'll use it, but it's not quite right. It's just hard to come up with a better one while I have one that popped in my mind. It's kind of like before you walk into a room saying like, I am going, like, I really like red stuff. You know, like, let's say I'm going to a store. This is a better version. Let's say I'm going shopping for clothes. Knowing going in that like, I tend to look really good in this kind of thing, or I really like this company that makes these clothes or whatever. Because when you walk in, there's just so much, you have to have some way to sort through it. And so having set some intention and made some decisions ahead of time about what kinds of things I'm particularly interested in helps you to sort through all that information. It doesn't mean though that you might go in there, see something that doesn't match anything on your list, but is like, no, that's what I want.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't mean that something that does match all the categories on the criteria on your list, you look at it and you're like, you might still be like, no, I don't want this. This doesn't work for me. So what I'm saying is it's useful in that way, just to kind of help you sort through information and prioritize noticing certain kinds of things. Not in, and then if I notice this, I should do X, Y, or Z.
Right.
Just to prioritize what you're paying attention to. Like I should really pay attention to whether this person is artistic because I've noticed patterns of how I get along with people who are or not. Doesn't mean if they are autistic, that's good. And if they aren't, that's bad. Just means it's something that I've learned is worth paying attention to.
Right. No, that makes sense. I feel like that's what I was trying to say.
I'm sure it was. I'm not contradicting you, but I am trying to point out an issue that people tend to have is in our culture, we tend not to do it that way. We tend to do it this other way where it's like, no, we've made a plan. That means we should follow the plan. And if I end up doing something different than that, I feel bad.
I want to go back to something you said about differentiating between plans and rules. Is there a difference?
Well, there should be.
Well, I mean, I don't know. When I think of that, I think, how do I say this? Oh, I feel like I'm contradicting myself in my head before I say it, but I'm going to say it. Like, with a plan, if you deviate from it or whatever, like, you can be upset, there's negative emotion, whatever, but I feel like a rule still happens, but there's like, I don't know, like, I feel like when I hear of like breaking a rule, to me, it automatically thinks like, but then you're going to have a bad consequence no matter what.
Right.
Or if you deviate from a
Which-
plan, that doesn't mean that that's necessarily going to happen.
Right. So that's part of what I'm talking about, right? That like we tend to treat deviating from a plan as though it is like breaking a rule, meaning that it's inherently bad. If I don't do the plan, I feel the same way, I respond the same way as if I just broke a rule, which is like, uh-oh, this is bad, I'm gonna look out.
But the feeling's the same, but not the actual consequence.
Well, sure, and that's the point I'm making, is that people tend to, in our culture, treat it that way, and it shouldn't be treated that way. Plans are just guesses, and it's useful to make guesses in advance sometimes, very much so. But if you then treat it as, no, that's how it's supposed to be or how it should go, then you're setting yourself up for some difficulty later on, instead of just like, given what I know now, this is my best guess at like what would be a good way for things to work out.
Right.
Because it also then has this flip side to it, this like kind of almost opposite thing where people become very hesitant to say anything about what they want. Because so if you say like, hey, what do you want to do, in your career or whatever, then people will be like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to want 10 years from now. And like, yeah, that's true. You don't know what you're going to want 10 years from now. That's not uniquely true of that person. That's true of all people. So obviously that's not the criteria for like being able to say what you want, is that you must know that you will still want it 10 years later.
Right.
But because we treat plans in this way where it's like, I don't want to commit to any kind of plan that I'm not confident that I will definitely still follow through on later. We're talking about what you want is just like, in this moment, when you think about 10 years from now in this moment, what's your guess about like, this is what I would like? Will it change? Of course it will change.
Yeah.
Or maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be the same thing you're saying. But like the level of certainty people are looking for of like, I need to know for sure what I'm going to like before I commit to anything or whatever. That just doesn't exist. And so it leads to people like stalling out because they think that's what you're supposed to have. Including, by the way, in relationships too. This is a big part of when people struggle with like committing to other people. That's often a big part of it is like, I don't know if I'm still going to let. It's like a standard joke, really, in our culture. It's on sitcoms and stuff, talking about cold feet. This idea of like, I really love this person. I want to be with them. Also, now that I'm thinking about like, we're going to be together forever. And I'm like, what about 10 years from now? Am I still going to love them? 20 years from now, am I still going to? And you can't know that.
Right.
You can have you can feel more confident or less confident. But that's why people freak out, is because all of a sudden it occurs to them. They're like, whoa, I don't actually know that I'm going to love this forever. And that doesn't counteract the fact that I know that I love it right now.
Right.
They just think they're supposed to have some level of certainty that isn't attainable. And so they panic. Same thing. Like, I just started a job and I like it, but I like it so much. I just know that if I work there, I'm going to get stuck there for the next 20 years. And I'm not sure I want to do it 20 years from now. Like, this leads to people giving up stuff that they like.
Yeah.
Because they're not sure that they're confident they like it enough that they'll keep doing it, but not confident they'll still like it 20 years from now.
I agree with that. I think there's also, how do I say this? Like, now with the work example, but I guess like with someone getting cold feet before getting married or something like that. Like, I agree with that, but I also think that I'm sure this is what you were saying, but there's also cases where they get that because, how do I say this? Like, there is, like, the relationship is in fact negative, and they're like, oh my God, like, I don't.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I'm not excluding that there are times where people, sign up for things that they regret even in the moment. That happens, certainly. People feeling pressured to do something and then realizing like, no, I don't want this even right now. I will say, well, this is a problematic like example to say this next thing. So let me back it up. Cause I'm trying to talk about this whole process, not just how it applies to specific things. So
it's interesting though.
I think so too. It's just that what I was about to say is that there are times where it is worth like making sacrifices or paying costs, right? And I'm trying to distance this from the idea of a partner because I know how that can be applied very problematically. But it is just a generally true thing where like there are times, we all know this, where it's like, I don't really want to do this right now, but I do want what I think will come from it later. So I'm willing to do it I am doing it right now for that reason. And I know I'm being very hesitant about this in relationships because there is so much discourse about abusive relationships or people who treat other people poorly, and there's so much truth to all that, and it's very valid. It is also true though that like even in very good relationships there will be times, or at least can be times and interactions where like, no, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And so that, yeah, inherently part of what you're exploring when you commit to anything, a person or anything, is like, you know, there are times where you're committing, even though right now I don't like it, but I'm still committing to it for what will come, what I believe will come later. And sometimes you're wrong about that and you have regrets, and sometimes you're right about that and it works out great. This is the thing, this idea that you can in advance figure it out.
Yeah.
That's just not how it works. So that's, people then stall out because they're like, no, until I have figured out for sure how it's going to work, I'm not going to commit to it. But that's not what commitment means. Commitment doesn't mean, like, if theoretically I could say like, we have looked into the future and like everything that happens from here on out because of this thing is really good and you want it, then committing to that thing, that's not commitment. That's just like, of course, yeah, I want all that good stuff.
Right.
The concept of commitment is saying like, I'm not sure that this is all going to be good. I think it will be good, or I think it will be largely good or whatever, but I am committing to dealing with even the bad parts of it in order to get the upsides of it, kind of thing. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
Go ahead and respond. I'm going to just zoom in so
I
we can
can't
see
read
that.
it.
I know, but what were you...
I was like, what? I don't know if you had said this. Maybe I lost it. What do you mean then by commitment?
That's what I'm saying. Commitment is when you're saying like, I am officially dedicating myself to this thing. I am doing something in some way that like kind of locks me into this, you know, engaging with this person or this job or whatever the thing is you're talking about committing to. It's saying like, I am making a decision now that I know how its ramifications in the future of like requiring me to be in relationship with this thing. And I'm saying that that's what I'm signing up for. Not that it will always be good, but that I'm signing up for that I think it's worth committing to, even though it won't always be good.
Okay, I think I lost that part.
I never understood that. There's a lot of plot points and stories about people going like, I can't date you because I love you too much, and if we ever break up, I will never recover. Seemed ridiculous to me. It is.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like, hello, welcome to life. No matter what you choose, something might go wrong. Yeah. I specifically, when that is a plot point in shows, as my wife can attest, like it annoys me so much.
Yeah.
Mostly because, let's step aside from this conversation for a second. Mostly because I think it's poor writing. Usually when that's in a show or something, it's because like...
They couldn't think of anything else.
Right. They're like, oh shoot, we created this relationship that's really great, but for plot purposes and whatever, we need it to like end. So how can we do that without it just... And then they'll come up with somebody doing that.
But sometimes it doesn't always end. Sometimes that is just the plot of that episode or that show.
Yeah, and even then I think it's bad, right? So then the plot of this episode is someone's like, oh no, this is too good, I should break up, and then being like, no, that's dumb, never mind. And like, did we need that? Did we need an episode?
Oh, I'm going to challenge you on that. I'm not going to say it's not bad writing, but I think that it's very relatable for people, though.
Oh, I agree. Agreed, that and miscommunications, and yes, some miscommunications are brilliant writing. Some are so annoying where it's like, no, you just say an extra sentence, you know, like bad writing, cop-outs. Yeah. No, I agree. Although I would say that I think that's recursive, right? That like, sure, it's relatable, but it's also partly relatable to people because everyone sees it and then they think similarly.
Right.
But in reality, I mean, as a therapist, I can say confidently that quite frequently I work with people who I'm going to say it in a way that sounds ridiculous first, and then I'll rephrase it later and everyone can be like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. Quite frequently I'll work with people and they say some version of like, I started doing this thing and it's really great for me. It's really making things better and I love it. So I have to stop it immediately.
Yeah, I've got the same thing too.
Which when you phrase it that way is ridiculous, but sometimes it's, I know I have an addictive personality and so I'm really liking this thing, but if I don't stop myself from doing it, I know I'm just going to get addicted to it or whatever. Or another version is...
Oh no, I was just going to say an added thing with that is I feel like another reason why like people want to stop it is because they're like it's so good. So if I do this and it's great, what happens if somehow I don't have the resources to keep doing it? Then what am I going to do? Like
Yeah.
putting all their eggs in one basket.
There's that. I've literally heard, I'm bipolar and I'm enjoying this so much it makes me worry that I'm getting manic
Mhm.
and that it's going to ruin everything. I've certainly, especially working with like neurodivergent people and whatever, heard a lot of, I'm doing this thing, but it makes it too easy. It seems like I'm cheating. So I've stopped.
Mhm.
Like that happens with ADHD medication
Yeah,
sometimes.
that's what I thought of.
People get weird about jobs too. You don't have to find the absolute perfect job right out of school. You probably shouldn't. But getting in a field you're interested in lets you learn more, and it's much easier to find out what you want when you're at least doing something adjacent to what you want. Yeah, absolutely. Plus, whatever you want, you might not end up wanting it, but you won't learn that until you're doing it. And you're like, oh, never mind. There's elements of it. I kind of think that about fame. I think that's one of those things that like everybody wants. And then once you have it, you're like, oh no. But it's too late. You're famous now.
Right.
Yeah. Or you might learn you hate it. Either way you learn. Jinx. Yeah. Yeah, it really, I would attribute all this to that same kind of category of people trying to figure out the future too much. And they think that it's possible. We think that that's possible. We think that other people do it. In fact, as therapists, a lot of what comes up in our work is basically people think that they wouldn't say it this way, but people think that therapists are like the future tellers, that they can come to you and be like, is this healthy? As though we can because we have this information, we can project out, no, if you do this 20 years from now, it'll be bad.
Right.
I mean, even the concepts of healthy and unhealthy are predicting the future.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fine. It's useful to do. Like, I want to know about healthy habits and whatever, but then we misapply this stuff. 80% of people who do X, it helps them with whatever. Well, that still means 20% of people who didn't. And we don't know if you're one of the 80 or
right.
one of the, this kind of stuff is useful, just like planning. It's useful to have guidelines and say, this is what I'm going to try and do, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think that it's possible for a person to say, this is how it will go,
right,
all you're going to know is that you never have figured that out. So now you just feel deficient. Like everybody else knows what they want to do with their lives, and I'm the only one who doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
When you're just applying a different standard of how confident you need to be.
Right. Why do you think that is? Like when people or someone thinks like, oh, this person has it all figured out, whatever. Like that person who seems to have it all figured out, like, what am I trying to say? Like, it sounds really woo-woo how I'm going to explain it, but it's fine. Like, what's the vibe they're giving off that makes this other person think that they have it all together and knows what's going to happen?
Usually, I mean, again, who knows? Because people use language differently, and anyone can say that for any reason. But a lot of the time, all that's happening is there's something I am struggling with that, like, I am thinking of as like, if I had my crap together, I would do X, Y, or Z. And that person I'm referring to does those things.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm like, man, I am like not working at a real job, I don't have a salary, I'm just jumping job to job and doing whatever. Then when I meet someone else who has a job that's salaried and they're working at the same place, I'm like, they really have their stuff together.
But they could be miserable and hate it, and
right.
There's so many nuances.
So when specifically that idea of having your stuff together, I don't know that I've ever heard anyone legitimately say like, I have my crap together. I've only heard people be like, I need to get my crap together, or like these other people have their crap together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because that specific one, it is like, there's something that you're looking at and thinking like, it would be better if I X.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you see someone who does X and you're like, see, they're better.
Right.
But you ignore the stuff. Like, here's a silly but very common example. It's like, okay, my place is a mess and I should get my stuff together and like, keep my place clean and nice. And then I go and visit somebody else and their place is so clean and nice. And I'm like, oh man, see, like other people do it. Why can't I do it? And you don't think about like, well, in real terms, let's say it takes that person 30 minutes a day to keep their place that clean.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so by definition, there's stuff that they're not doing during that 30 minutes that you are doing. And it's not to say that it's never, I would trade what I'm doing for 30 minutes to switch to that other thing. But like, and then you go to someone else's place and their place is messy like yours is, but they're really well dressed, which you're not, and whatever. And you're like, see, And then when you're thinking about like later, you're like, I don't dress well, my place is a mess. It's like, I know people can do this because so and so dresses really well and so cute. And it's not like you identify a specific person that does all the things you're thinking.
It's just trading off all these things.
You just compare yourselves to people in the ways that are relevant to where you're thinking about what you should do differently.
Right. How I learned this was I never feel like I have my shit together ever in the best way possible. I actually say that with pride. I like knowing that I don't know everything. But I've had friends in the past be like, oh, you just have it all. I'm like, what do I have? What are you talking about? And they're like, you have a job that you love and you're in a relationship. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, there's a lot of other things, and just made me put things into perspective, because I was always doing the opposite and be like, this person has this and that. But like, even just me having like a long-term relationship, and like people know how me and Jeff are. Like, we've been friends also for like 13 years, and people are like, oh, she has it all together just because I'm in a long-term relationship. Like, forgetting all of these other things.
Right. They're just talking about the thing that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And like some of this stuff, well, they're big rocks, right? Like, there's a reason that we keep using, we're referencing like romantic relationships and employment, because those are two really, really big ones.
Isn't it sad that I don't think, like, I know that that's true as we're talking about this, but I don't. Maybe work I actually do. I do think that's a big one, but I guess I don't. If you had asked me this 10 years ago, I would be like, oh my God, I need a good relationship. Oh my God. And now that I have it, I'm like, I know it's important, but I don't see the importance of it that other people see because I have it now. I feel like that sounds so like awful to say.
No, that's how it's supposed to work, right? Like, if I was starving, I'd be really focused on, I need to get some food, and I wouldn't be worried so much about whether my house is clean. But when I'm not starving, then I can focus on like, oh, my house isn't clean. It's the hierarchy of needs, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. All it is when there's a problem, you focus on solving that problem. Once you solve that problem, it doesn't mean that no other problems exist. You just move on to solving those other problems.
More doors open in the mansion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You move up the hierarchy of needs, more doors open in the mansion. Yeah. There's never ever going to be a time in any human's life where they're like nothing, or well, not for longer than a short, very short. I'm talking about like minutes in a day or whatever. There's never going to be a time where you're like, there's nothing that I would want to be different than it is.
I think though, I'm arguing with you a lot today. No, different perspective. I get that, but not minutes. Like, I feel like 2 years ago, like, I did feel like everything was good. Like, I didn't think I needed to change anything, maybe for like a month or something like that. But I think that's also because I was not as aware as I am now, which I looked at it was a bad thing, but it is inherently a good thing. But I think I was, using the word, but kind of ignorant to everything else.
Well, in your specific case, I knew you 2 years ago, so I can say this with confidence. Dang it. But even if I didn't, I could still say, no, you're wrong. You're remembering it that way, but that's not true. Just like we talk about, we compare ourselves to other people, generally only in like, well, that person keeps their place cleaner than I do. It's true when we compare ourselves to past versions of ourselves or hypothetical versions of ourselves. We're like, see, I used to do this so much better. And sometimes that's true, right? Like, I used to work on my art so much or whatever. And then it's like what we were just talking about. Yeah, but what is it that you're doing now that you weren't doing then? Right? Because we tend to ignore that. I used to play D&D and come up with all these stories and cool stuff all the time, and I miss that. Why don't I come up with cool stories in my mind all the time? And like, I also didn't used to have kids, and I like having my kids. I love my kids. So I don't think of that as like a cost or a burden. But then there's this other thing I also enjoy that I'm not doing anymore. And so I'm like, why am I not doing that? Right. This is part of why in our culture we tend to go with like motivation or just, I got to want it more or whatever. Because we don't like to acknowledge that, like, no, there's other things that I'm really glad to have, but do require a cost also. And I can't have the other thing too.
I want to speak on this because this is also something that I've noticed recently. So like, I'm normally really into painting. I've been doing like painting now for like 6-7 months. I love it. Actually, I used to only do paint by numbers, guys, but hear this. I'm now actually like painting, like just on a canvas. I never had the confidence to do that. I don't know, but I'm increasing my artistic ability. I would do that and I would read. And there's been days where I'm like, I'm not painting, I'm not reading. And I'm like, oh my God, like what is going on with me? I have all this time And I was getting in my head a lot yesterday, being like, why can't I do this? And I remember thinking, like, Margaret, like, since the new office is open, like, I've been thinking of ideas. I've been looking online. I've been being more creative. Like, I'm filling that time with other things, but in my mind, I'm like, I used to do all these things. And I think another thing that inherently worries me with that is like, oh, if I don't keep up with the painting and the reading, then, because I consider those also like coping skills, like when it makes me less anxious, makes me calm. I think, oh, if I don't do those, then I'm going to get more anxious. But it's like, no, right now, working on my office and working on things at work is doing that. Like, it's just tools in your toolbox. I will get to that later if I want to.
Well, so and part of what you're talking about is we're often talking about like this thing is useful right now, and the way in which we're conceptualizing it or discussing it is likely to cause problems later, right? This, what you just mentioned there, is one of those things where, like, in the context in which you were, which, by the way, pretty strong evidence that 2 years ago it was not true, that you're just like, I don't want to change anything.
I said there was like a month during that time. You don't know what month I'm referencing. There was a longer period of time than a few minutes, is what I'm saying.
So I can get really pedantic and nitpicky and say like, no, because you still like wanted to drink some water or wanted to use the bathroom or whatever. And I know that sounds so nitpicky because people are focused on it as though I'm saying like you're wrong, which is not the point. The point I'm trying to make is that this concept is just not real. It's not how humans live it. It's, 2 years later, you're not remembering how throughout that day you wanted to do this or you wanted to do that, because you're just looking at like certain things.
I mean, like big life changes. I'm focused on, yes, I know, not the little things.
Yeah, I still don't think that happened for a month, but
we'll talk later.
But that has a lot to do with how people define like what counts as a big life change or not. I'm not trying to say that it's impossible to be happy or content. It certainly is possible to be those things. I'm just saying it's impossible to not have your attention, even if all the big stuff is the way you want it, which it can happen. Well, then your attention just goes to smaller and smaller stuff.
Well, yes, I agree.
So you're always focused on things you want to be different. And that's the point we're talking about, right? Like you get your personal relationship and your work life sorted out, and now you're focused on, oh man, I want to do my hobbies more. You get that sorted out, and now you're focused on like, oh, I want to cook better food or whatever. There's always something. So anyway, the language thing there is when you develop, it's very, very useful for people, especially sometimes in certain contexts, to label things as like, this is a coping skill. And if when you do that, the problem then, the possibility of the problem becomes that later, when things are better and they're not as anxious and stuff, they still think I'm supposed to do this because it's a coping skill. And if not, I'm going to get anxious again. But the only reason it was a coping skill in the first place is because you liked doing it. And so it's still something that you may or may not like doing, but it is to think of it as like medicine. And if I don't take it, I'll get sick. No, you're doing other things that you like more, or your life is different in a way that you like more. There's just, it's never as simple as people want it to be, that like, I have this thing, and if I do this, it's better. So if I ever stop doing this, it'll be worse. But especially with anxiety, that's one of the reasons that anxiety is such a pervasive issue, is because the fear that if I don't do it, things will get worse is anxiety now. So it is also now true. Because I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing that, I'm going to get anxious. That is anxious. So you are anxious, and you will reinforce this idea of like, see, I don't do it, I'm anxious.
What a trap.
Anxiety in particular.
What a trap. That's a tricky one.
People tend to think that depression is the thing that like therapists most commonly see, but it's anxiety is by far the most common issue.
I'm going to say there's one that's like anxiety and OCD.
Well, I agree with you, although I will say that a lot of what people are talking about with OCD is anxiety.
I was getting there.
Sorry.
Let me have the floor for a second.
My bad.
No, yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, I have nothing else. That was me getting the floor.
OCD is an anxiety disorder, right? Like, you're experiencing anxiety as a result of or connected to some obsessive thoughts. You do compulsive behaviors in order to alleviate the anxiety. In fact, if we wanted to, your statement earlier of like, oh, I'm not doing my coping skills, so I might get anxious.
Yeah.
We could then say that your coping skill is now a compulsion, where you're like, I have to do it or else I will think anxious thoughts.
Yeah.
It's all nebulous. And that's the point. It's all nebulous. It's about what's
Right.
useful. It's not about what's right or what's wrong. I know we all desperately want to believe that this can all be known. That it even though I don't know it and nobody I know knows it, there is some identifiable set of like, just do this, and everything will be perfect forever.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's not real. And when I phrase it that way, everybody knows it's not real. But we still, when we phrase it in other ways, because that's something that's very incentivized in our culture, right? Is, of course, everybody knows. There's not like, do these 3 things and you will never be sad again. But there's a lot of incentive in our culture that if I can convince you that doing these 3 things will mean you'll never be sad again, it's good for me.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly good for you too. I don't want to make it sound like this is always self-serving. It can be done in good faith. But so yeah, there's a lot of incentive, a lot of pressure, and therefore a lot of attempts that people make to phrase things, present things in ways that what they're really saying is, do this and you'll never be sad again.
Mm-hmm.
But they're saying it in a way that sounds right.
Right.
Right? They're like, no, I know that if I can't control other people, but I can control the way I respond to them. So if I just control my own feelings, then I'll be happy.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds so good, but that is still like, here's the thing that if you just do this, you won't be sad.
Right.
And if you're sad, it's because you're not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
That one's particularly tricky because the thing that you're supposed to do is just not be sad, like decide not to be sad.
Yeah.
So anytime you're sad, you're like, dang it, I'm not doing the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as time goes on, more and more of this advice that people get and these understandings is that kind of like recursive, almost tautological, meaning like it by definition, in other words, basically what people are saying over and over is like, the trick to not being sad is to not be sad.
Right.
Or the trick to being productive is to be productive. They just frame it in different words, but it still means that same thing. And so then everybody's feeling bad all the time about what's wrong with me.
Also, what you said about like, if I don't do the coping skill, like this is going to happen. I've seen this time and time again, mostly in movies with therapists, which drive me crazy. That's a topic for another day. I can't start it now because that'll be another hour. But when every time, I'm sure there's.
It's a 10-minute warning.
Oh, okay. I was like, I'm sure again there's nuance to everything, but whenever I've seen like a client like come in to like a therapist on TV or in a movie, and they're like, I'm so anxious, I'm blah blah blah, like going through whatever, the first thing they always say is, well, have you been doing your coping skills? I'm like, you didn't even ask anything about what's going on, just, well, have you been writing? Have you been doing this? And I'm like, that even if that is a question you want to ask, at least to me, I feel like the first time someone hears that, it's almost like, oh, it's on me. It's my fault.
I mean, in my mind, and I think there's truth to this probably, but I don't know. In my mind, it's just every like writer in Hollywood has a terrible therapist. And so anytime they ever try to write about therapists, it's like their therapists are, but that's also it is very common, very standard, and oftentimes very highly thought of therapy to be like, well, this is just like a disease, right? Like these are the symptoms, you do these things and the symptoms go away. And it's just not that. The trick to being productive is being productive and also getting a really good planner. Just find the best planner out there that'll fix it. Yeah, I mean, that is one of those things where it's like, in order to be productive, you have to make plans, which that's part of why we're talking so much about how, no, that's not the case. And actually making plans is literally counterproductive, in part because you're spending resources on the planning as opposed to on the doing. And, not that it's never, but if you plan too much, right, if we call it overthinking, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, that's one of those like 2 steps removed things where it's like, no, this planner will make it easy for you to make plans that you'll follow.
Yeah.
But really it's just do the things that you plan to do.
I also think, and it took me 30 years to realize this because I always thought I loved planners. I guess I like how they look. They're all cute. I want to write. I haven't used a planner now for a while. Like I use like my calendar and stuff, like a physical paper one. It caused me so much anxiety. At least for me, like seeing it, I don't know how it is, like written all on this page and just seeing all of this stuff. And they're like, the more specific you get, like they'll have it by the hour. Oh my God, it was freaking me out. I was just, okay, let me try a new one. And I was like, this is not helpful for
No.
me. That just makes it worse.
Actually, so we could do like a whole series on like what, because I'm not trying to say that none of this is useful, right? Like we could do a whole series on like what elements of a planner I think are more likely to be helpful and what are more likely to be problematic or whatever. So I don't want to like throw the baby out with the bathwater and say all this stuff is terrible. That said,
Mhm.
if you look into the research, this isn't like it is my personal opinion, but it is backed up by research. To-do lists, planners, they make the problems that they're intended to solve worse.
Mhm. Yeah, I've seen that.
Because quite often what we're talking about is like, here's a person who thinks that they really should plan everything out to the nth degree before they do it,
Mm-hmm.
which is a problem. And in order to like help that person be more, of course, anyone who is thinking like, I'll be more productive if only I'm better at planning, is already a person who likely is over planning stuff.
Absolutely.
Like anyone who's not over planning is not someone that's like, I need a new planner that'll fix my problem. So you're selling the addict the drug as though it is the solution, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, of course, the joke about ADHD is having like a billion different planners, because that's the issue quite often is like, I think that if I just plan everything right, everything will work out.
Right.
So I'm making a bunch of different attempts to just plan everything right, and it doesn't work. But yeah, because that's not how it works. And the research backs that up. It's not to say that there's no utility to them or certain kinds of them, or that they can be used in certain ways, but in general, and that's what research is for, right? Statistical analysis, not specific scenarios. Statistically speaking, the use of to-do lists and planners makes people less productive and more anxious.
Yeah.
I hate the idea of planning by the hour. I am on my way out to sit in a coffee shop and plan my next 2 weeks. Yeah.
I love it.
And see, like an hour by hour planner actually is something that not only do I use, but I would like not quite mandate, but almost mandate for my employees to use here.
Well, I want to make this very clear. Hold on. I do that, but I think it's different doing it virtually on a calendar
Sure.
versus writing it down.
I agree. And not that there are many, many apps that are doing the same thing. Like this app will make you more productive. And again, utility to some of that. But what I was going to say is that it's context dependent, right? Like I have a job in which my day is often, predominantly full of hour-long meetings.
Right.
So it's, when a client or when somebody's asking for time, it's really important for me to be able to say like, here's an hour that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Where most jobs, no, you do not need an hour by hour planner.
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous. But, there are some jobs where you'd want a 15-minute by 15-minute planner because that's how your stuff is. Yeah. I mean, if you are a teacher, especially like an elementary school teacher, yeah, you have your day planned out to like the 5, 10, 15-minute portions.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that for teachers. I didn't know 15 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of things where it's like, we'll do this for 5 minutes, then we'll do this for 15 minutes.
I'm old. I don't remember.
Well, it's not necessarily that the teachers say all that to the kids. It's there's so many things with teaching that are like, you were talking about looking at people having things together, and a lot of that has to do with where people are doing work that I can't see from the outside.
People having what together?
People having their crap together.
Oh.
A lot of that has to do with like the work they're doing, the challenges they're facing are things that I don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things is when it comes to teaching, people are like, they get summers off. But the work of being a teacher, I don't care. You find me somebody who's complained about like teachers have it so easy. They only work so much, blah, 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 and they take all this time off, and offer them to go and be a kindergarten teacher, and they're not taking that job because they know that there's a lot to that.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I hate this humor, the thing I'm about to reference. I obviously don't participate in myself, and it bothers me, but it is very common humor. And so common, I would say, that it bleeds into being real for everyone, even if it starts as jokes they end up thinking is true. That parents will complain about having to be with their kids all day, right? They're like, the kids don't have school. What am I supposed to do with them? Like, I need these kids out of my house. Like, people will joke about that constantly and then be like, oh, teachers, what an easy job.
Right.
Like, no, man. You take the average adult and be like, you are responsible for 20 children for 10 minutes. And they'd be like, no.
Right, absolutely.
Do not do that to me.
Yeah.
No, I'm referencing this in part because my wife is a teacher. She
Mhm.
specifically taught kindergarten, first and second grade for a long time. I taught, and I know some of this. But yeah, no, like when that's the job you do, you can't. Most people who do white collar work, you ask them about their schedule in a given day, and they've got maybe 1 to 2 things that are scheduled in that day,
Mhm.
a meeting or two. Again, though, even with that low amount of meetings, everybody's complaining about meetings all the time.
Mhm.
Because for the most part, white collar workers are like, I'll just go to work and kind of figure out what I do when I do it throughout the day. Like, yes, I have projects and yes, I have deadlines, but like, I don't have a boss standing over my shoulder being like, do this right
Mhm.
now. Just when I'm on this one, I'll do that. When I'm on whatever.
Mhm.
And that even like sacrificing the level of flexibility there to have a scheduled meeting, even just one in a day, is so annoying to people that they complain about it constantly.
Yeah.
To imagine then having a job like ours or like teachers where it's like, no, everything. You can't, like, as a teacher, you need to go to the bathroom. You can't just step out. There's
Right.
15 to 25 kids, or you can't just leave them unsupervised.
Mhm.
Either you have a TA, which is part of the reason that we have TAs, or you have to like wait for someone else to come in,
Right.
or you wait for like recess time, or what your entire, even when you use the bathroom is scheduled, But people, like you said, they know their own experience, so they know that in their job as a
Mhm.
white collar worker, they mostly just get to do whatever. And like,
Yeah.
if I didn't have to come into work for 3 months, that'd be amazing.
Right.
Anyway, can confirm when I have more than like 5 meetings on my actual calendar for the week, that's an intense week. Oh yeah. No, it is. I love how most office workers will be like, I am slammed. I have 5 meetings this week.
Mhm.
And I'm not mocking. I know you're pointing this out yourself. And for us, it's like, like a regular day is like 7 meetings.
Right.
Like I have 10-minute windows between meetings where I can do other things.
You're considering seeing clients as meetings?
Yeah, that's if someone in another like office job was like, you have to sit down with a person for 50 minutes, that's a meeting. You have to talk to this person for 50 minutes. You can't work on other projects.
I guess so. I guess I don't know. That makes sense. I don't know why.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't feel like a meeting. A meeting sounds so like.
Well, we enjoy it.
I know.
But I would hope. Yeah, that counts.
Thanks.
I would hope. Obviously, this isn't true, or at least I don't think it's true. But I would hope that everybody enjoys the work that they do. Right? Like that's the idea. Is we want.
Yeah.
We're all different, and we like different things, and that theoretically, at least, can work out so that everybody gets to do what they want, even though what everyone else is doing is something I would want to do. And what I'm doing, again, people will talk about our profession of like, oh, you just sit there and talk to people for 7 hours,
Mm-hmm.
which when you're a bricklayer or whatever, that's like, man, just sitting down.
Right.
Although everybody I've ever met who works in, including myself when I used to work in those physical fields,
Mm-hmm.
would actually like be really bugged by having to sit still for 7 hours.
I bet. Yeah.
But this is actually, I know we ever have up, but this is a good test for a lot of things. When people are complaining about things or saying that something else seems better than what they have, you talk about trading. That's how you can really tell the difference between like, that sounds really good to me versus I would prefer it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, well then do you want to come and do my job where you sit down and talk to people for 7 hours? And obviously people will come up with excuses like, oh, no, I'm not trained for that, whatever.
Yep. Yeah.
As though once you get the training, now you have no insecurity about whether you're helping or.
I want to talk about this more. This is exciting. I also, in the future, want to talk about therapy and movies and how it's projected. I have so many thoughts.
It's the worst.
It's a 2-hour stream.
I'll say real fast about that because it is the worst. I want to talk about it. We tell stories that do not map to real life. That's the whole point of stories. That's why when you watch shows and movies, you don't see people taking a minute to go use the bathroom. Like the rule in theater is if it's happening on stage, it better be life or death. If it's not that, don't put it on. We skip through all the boring regular stuff to like the big meetings.
Right.
And real therapy is good therapy, I think, is absolutely captivating for the person who is undergoing the therapy, and just boring as watching paint dry to anybody else. That's the whole point. It's so specific to that person that it is not entertaining for anyone to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And no, nobody is like, here, let me put a full 50-minute session in a show.
They should.
So it's like, I'm putting 3 lines in and I need to be really dramatic lines. So it's stuff that no therapist not that no therapist would ever say, but generally shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like 95% of every therapist I've ever seen, like doing straight up, not even like morally gray, but like clearly identified as unethical
Yeah.
behavior that would lose you your license.
Absolutely.
And it's just like, oh yeah, that's just how therapists are.
Oh, I know. We need to table this. We
know,
need to
I
end the
gotta
stream. But I hope that you all have a good holiday, a good week, and next week.
Probably,
Monday,
although
right?
I won't be here. So if we do the stream next week, it'll be
Virtual.
remotely.
Okay.
We'll let you know. But yes, for those of you who celebrate, Merry Christmas. If we don't see everybody, Happy New Year
Yeah.
on the standard American calendar.
Yeah, good to be with you all.
We should have talked about that.
I know.
The,
This was
how
good.
that week between Christmas and New Year's doesn't exist in American culture.
Yeah, I think that this was good though.
Yeah, that was fun. Good to be with you all.
Yes. Have a good week.